So after rehearsal last week, I'd missed a day, so I didn't get to see how everything had been staged for the first half of American Idiot. I got to see how Favorite Son was staged, and it clarified a few things for me. The problem with doing sometimes shows based off of a concept album, and linking different, in the case of American Idiot, taking songs from a different album than American Idiot and trying to link them in there, is sometimes the story can get a little lost. And that's not a bad thing. That's totally fine, and that's why we have a director to help clarify things. But one of the things that I didn't understand was why is Favorite Son in the show? Why is it important to the show? So after seeing the staging, I now know. But it also made me really think about how we in the United States of America view our military. Full disclosure, I come from a military family. Might not have lived on base a whole lot than when I was younger, but my brother is currently in the Navy. Last I heard, he was somewhere in the Middle East on a ship that's flying missions into Syria and Iraq, which is rather frightening. My dad's a former Marine. My grandfather's a former Marine. My other grandfather was in the Air Force. My uncle was in the Air Force. So I've got lots of family connections to the military. And we have really super glamorized what it means to be a soldier. And I know some of that is because they, that's for a recruiting thing and they have to convince people. But you watch, you watch the commercials and you see the posters, and it looks, so good. It's nobody ever they look grim, they look determined, but you don't see the PTSD, and you don't see people with lost limbs, and you don't see the scarring, and you don't see a lot of things. And I understand that it's basically a propaganda tool. Being in the military is awesome. It's a chance to serve your country, in just another way that sitting on a jury and voting or even running for a public office, is a type of serving your country. But it kind of worries me sometimes that we've glamorized killing. I mean, just across the board. I had somebody tell me once that actually my friend Ashley, who is very much into guns, enjoys going to shooting ranges, enjoys introducing people to the act. She and I had a very long conversation one day about guns, and the discussion ranged from just knowing how to defend yourself, to discussing Shaolin monks, and even got to the Jedi, because that's a thing that happens with my friends. We're all nerds. But we both agreed that while we dislike the overall availability of weapons that can kill, I mean, even down to a simple knife, it is better in the end, I think, to know how to use it completely, 100% completely, how to take it apart and put it back together, to know how to aim, to know how to pull the trigger, to know what it does. It's not a bad thing to have knowledge. It's not a bad thing to want to have the knowledge. But on the other side of it, certain people like to make these ridiculous arguments about how, a good guy with a gun will always stop a bad guy with a gun. You know what? That's what the police are for. And I think they said something like 9 times out of 10 when there's a civilian involved in stopping an active shooter, they're generally an off-duty cop. I think this is only 9 times out of 10. So that whole, good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun is, I think it's total bullshit. If somebody wants to go and shoot somebody up, shoot something up, they're going to do it regardless. They're not going to think about the consequences. And it's really funny to me that, to kind of tie this in even more to, I don't know, Black Lives Matter. You have a lot of the people who say a good guy with a gun will stop a bad guy with a gun, and kind of taking away from the job of the police, are also saying that people just need to respect the police and not break laws. And so, I don't know, it's a really confusing argument to me, and it seems really dumb. And I get shades of gray. It's really easy to understand that there are shades of gray. Nobody is perfect. Not everybody who is involved with the Black Lives Matter movement is a good person. Not everybody who is, in the police force is a good person. And to try and take it down to a simple black and white, it's absolutely wrong. But back to the main point of why I'm making this video. My question is, do we do a disservice to the young men and women who want to join the military by glamorizing it so much? By showing, here's a rescue mission, and you can help your country, and everybody in the videos, they look perfect. It's the perfect man, it's the perfect woman. Do we set our soldiers up for false expectations? And then when they get into those situations and those expectations are destroyed, have we as a society helped to contribute to their deteriorated mental state, especially when they come back from war, especially with the PTSD and all the other scarring that goes on, both physically and emotionally and mentally? Are we really being safe? It's one thing to say, serve your country, help your country. I think it is quite another thing to say and to show images of everything being okay 100% of the time. Because that's not how it is. Because the world is not black and white. The world is shades of gray. I think one of my favorite lines so far in American Idiot is when, I believe it's the 3 main guys, Johnny, Will, and Tunny, all say, the good guys don't wear red, white, and blue. And for some, that's an incredibly unpatriotic thing to say. It's a very un-American thing to say. But I think they have a point. In that if we expect only one type of person to always be right, we really set them up for failure too. Because again, nobody's perfect. Nothing is 100%. And nothing will ever be 100%. How could it? We don't live in a world that is itself is even 100%. And I don't know the right answers. I can only sit and think and talk about them. But it does. Seeing that and seeing that glamorization made even more real in this characterization of American society with American Idiot. Do we? I would love to get an answer. Do we put too much emphasis on the okay part of being in the military and not enough on the reality of being in